So a couple of key things about this assignment. It is very similar to last week's assignment, so I'm not going through and giving answers for any of the sections because the last time was our first time kind of doing it. Now we should kind of have an idea of what we are doing. What was that? TV? Anyway, so secondly, this can be done with a partner, okay? But whoever is working with you, you need to have both stories open. You cannot do this assignment without the stories. Like, you're just winging it. You're making stuff up. You're hoping you're right. Unacceptable. All right. So the first section here, same as last time. We have our two stories we've read this week. Protagonist, antagonist, protagonist, antagonist. This time there's only one of each in each one. And then here, so I'm going to struggle with this last week. This is things that they are doing. All right. Now, it's nice if it's things that are against one another. It's nice that if it's things that are propelling or moving the plot forward. But as long as it's something that the character has done, right, then we're good. All right. So second section here, I tried to make it a little bit easier than last section. So this time I changed it so that here's the Thor column and here's the Prometheus column. Every Thor column has a question, every Prometheus, and then the fill in the blank answers. Now, I tweaked this a little bit so that it fits the fill in the blank, but if the fill in the blank are so confusing, I don't think these questions are nearly as confusing. I think they fit a lot better than they did last week because I separated them. I think when it was just one for both, it was too much. So now I have one for each section. So you'll see, like, what problem does Thor face at the beginning of the story? Hint, hint, you need the story open. And what does his reaction reveal about him? So because Thor, and what does he do at the beginning of the story, the reader understands what about him. Okay? What does Prometheus notice about humans, and what does that reveal about him? Because Prometheus, blank, the reader understands blank. So it just depends on whether or not you want to keep those blanks or not. But it's the same thing here for the plot development and for the theme connection. I did questions to make it easier. And I hope that it does. Because I know by itself, the fill in the blanks are struggling. I tried to make it easier last week, and I still saw some areas where we could improve. So I'm hoping that this improves it completely and that there aren't as many questions or just, what am I answering? And I kind of felt that way too for some of them. So hopefully this fixes it all. And then the vocabulary, no, the definitions are here for you this time. They weren't there last time, so you don't have to write them in the boxes like you did last time. They're right here for you. All right, and the same thing, but sorry, it looks like it's the same thing, but it's a little bit different. So it's kind of confusing when you look at it, but each one in this section is about Thor and what he does with forethought, with defiance, with dignity, and with collaboration. And then each one of these is about Prometheus and what Prometheus does with forethought, defiance, dignity, and collaboration. And then we come over here and we just have, what do we learn about Thor? Because, like, let's say Thor killed a lion. What do we learn about Thor killing a lion? Prometheus created the heavens and the earth. What do we learn about Prometheus for doing that? Neither of those are necessarily true, although I'm sure Thor killed a lion. But what do we learn about those characters based on those things? So 3 in each section that we learn about the characters. And then down here, also a new section. Okay, so how does the meaning change? And this is our connotation, denotation type of thing. So forethought and worrying are very similar words. However, one has more of a positive while one has a more negative. So how does the meaning change? What is lost when we add this word? Same thing with defiance versus being bad, dignity versus pride, and then collaboration versus asking for help. Which one of these sounds better? Which one of these sounds worse? And how does it? So that's how the meaning changes. And then what is lost? So a lot of times it's like, why do we have all these words? Well, because one word does better than 5 words, and right, we can say one word and it can, I can say that, this is a word that I feel like we know now. Like, I can say that someone is altruistic instead of saying that someone will put themselves before others or help others, put their life at risk to make sure that others are happy or others are cared for or are content or comfortable or whatever. Instead of going through like that whole paragraph, I can just say, Tom is altruistic, and be done with it. And then finally, we have our synthesis here. Sorry, I got to a 5-minute video. I didn't want to here, but looking at your word exchange above, imagine if we describe Prometheus as a bad, worrying guy who only succeeds because he asked for help. Does he still seem like a legendary hero who changed human history, or does he just seem like a troublemaker who couldn't do things on his own? Do you notice how that changes? To me, it changes immediately. He's bad, he worries, he's a guy who only asks for help. That means he can't do anything on his own, right? So how does that change? And again, similar to our thing earlier this week, I don't necessarily need it to be an RTQT. I just need you to answer the question fully with a quote, okay? Because you guys have gotten good at this, and I hope that you have confidence in your abilities as writers as we are moving to the end of the year and then into 8th grade. All right, thank you guys for watching. Again, with partners, if you so choose, not giving you answers this week because I feel like you can do it. I know that you can do it. All right, thank you guys. Bye, everybody.